All right, today we're talking about conversions. I'm here with Alano Vasquez from Wise. My name is Eric, obviously. And the reason why we want to talk about conversions is because it's a big overlooked thing with a lot of businesses when it comes to their website, different experiences they have online, like their social media. So got Alano here for kind of more like the branding side and the experience side, and then I'll kind of talk about more like the nitty gritty. More like detailed, like exactly how to optimize on a particular web page and landing page that you have. Yeah. But Alano, can you get us started?
Yeah, sure. So, at Wise, we kind of have a house of brands. We have Wise Marketing, which is like our parent company. And then we have 3 divisions. One division that focuses on branding for like tech and software companies. Another division where we do a lot of cool stuff in the trade show space, developing like virtual booths. And then another division focused on cannabis. So they're all branded separately, separate websites. You and I have talked about that. It's a lot of freaking work. But in context of this conversation, when as big brand advocates, even before you get to the point of writing copy, designing landing pages, setting up all the CRO, we first want to make sure that you've identified who your audience is, why they're special, what problems you're solving from them or with them. And a lot of that happens in the branding side of things. And so you could still, do amazing conversion optimization without branding per se. But if you really want to get that like God mode conversion, you said like, above 6%, to really make sure you spend time on the front side doing sometimes like not so sexy stuff, which is persona research, understanding, your audience in detail before you get into the nitty gritty stuff. So that's what we try to focus on. Very upstream brand kind of business strategy stuff.
I can imagine one of the major things that affects conversion on a brand level is just like trust and credibility. Like, even simple things as like, can I trust this brand to put my information into one of their payment forms on their website? Like, it's like little things like that kind of get to people nowadays because skepticism is so high in the market. Yeah. So I understand that. But how can, so I guess, first question for like the brand side would be, just because I'm curious, how would you use branding and that more upstream level stuff to make sure that you're talking to the right people and you have brand authority and credibility and everything that kind of like comes as a result of that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So when you're saying talking to the right people, have you defined an audience you're going after? I always talk about niching down. And we usually encounter companies that have, large and ambitious goals. They feel like their products or services could kind of cater to a lot of different people. But they start to realize that there's like a sweet spot. So we start off by usually saying like on the branding side, who are your most ideal customers? Not all revenue is good revenue. Profitable revenue is good revenue. So which of the customers do you just like vibe well with? Who do you like working with? Who does your product serve? They're like raving fans. And can we isolate them and then say that there is a market of more people like them? And then we can help you kind of shake off the customers who aren't ideal. So we always talk about it just like instead of like persona evaluation, it's like ideal customer evaluation. Who are those super ideal customers? And once you define them, we sit down and we interview them. We say, why did you like this product? And out of having these conversations with them about, being a third party and interviewing them, they start to give you kind of like one-liners. So they could give you some of the best headings, search optimization keywords that you could use within the context of all the stuff that you guys do like on the site, instead of having to go out and just to kind of do like a lot of assumptive based marketing. That's what we try to stay away of. Like, let's not assume and squander dollars. Let's just get straight to the source, ask tough questions so we could really set the stage for everybody else who's a little more downstream doing the stuff that you guys do, after the branding happens.
Exactly. So like what you're saying is when the person actually gets to the website, you know how to communicate with them correctly and drive away the people that are not qualified customers. Like when it comes down to that, what kind of discovery process do you think that do you guys go through to find that I guess market fit or like the right messaging that is going to lead to most conversions? Because you're saying like this is what we do. Can you give maybe 3 things that you guys go through during your strategy and discovery that lead to that?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So what we usually talk about, discovery is a concept not really known to everybody too. They're used to reaching out to an agency and being like, hey, can we get a proposal for a website? And you want to kind of slow down the conversation for their own sake and also for the sake of the agency to make sure like it's a good mutual fit and saying, hey, maybe we should spend some time really making sure we're a good fit for one another and go through this discovery phase. So we typically start with like a paid discovery engagement, and we just pretty much go through 3 phases like you're saying: assess, diagnose, and prescribe. right? Once you assess, diagnose, and prescribe what they want, then you can recommend them something. And 9 times out of 10, they need some love with their branding before they just start running campaigns. They might come to us saying, we want to run a social media campaign. And then they realize they need branding. So we start there. And so then within the branding process, it's kind of the same thing. It's like you're first investigating, you're testing the assumptions of the company. They think they know which their product, service, and resonate the most with their audience. You're studying the competitors, and then you're interviewing their customers. And you're trying to create this concentric circle where you're aligning where the competition is missing the mark, where what the customers are truly looking for, their ideal ones, and then what the company's like values are, and then aligning all of those. And that's when you get that brand feeling that kind of just overcomes you. Like, I just trust these guys. This feels right. And for the people that shouldn't be on your site and converting, they're going to run for the hills. They're going to be like, oh, this company looks too big, or they look too small, or they look too young, but really they are going for approachable and it's just not resonating with them. So you're right. I think like there's so much math and there's so much process that could be applied to the branding process, and knowing those steps is like crucial.
Yeah. And then kind of what you were talking about too with like driving the wrong people away. It's kind of like the Pareto principle, where it talks about, 80% of the result comes from 20% of the effort.
Yeah.
So it's like the majority of your revenue is coming from like a certain, part of the market. And if you can brand yourself in a way that only talks to that part of the market, you're going to be spending less time on sales calls with people that aren't qualified. And then the traffic that's going to go to your website is going to convert more. So you're going to have a higher percentage. And then also it helps like a web designer person that is like actually doing the tactics and execution of the CRO, or conversion rate optimization on the website, because then they know exactly what words to include. This kind of get help from like a copywriter to do that as well, of what's going to drive the most conversions and resonate with that market.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, that's a good point. You're talking about guidelines, right? Like when you do brand guidelines properly, you're calling out everything from obviously like logos, treatments, font types, but you're calling out, positioning. You're calling out specific keywords. You're calling out a lot of things that a copywriter could use in the context of their work, a designer. And so everyone has this point of reference. It's very hub and spoke. And at the hub are the brand guidelines that are, might just be a 20-page, 30-page document, but it's the result. It could be of 20 to 30 weeks of discovery and, design. And if everybody is following those guidelines, the customers could feel it. They're like, there's no disconnect with their voice, their tone, how they look, how they feel, and that creates trust, right? From a branding side. Whereas like for you guys, if you guys are doing something e-commerce, trust is having, like a site security SSL certificate. For us, it's like, is there a cohesive brand and everybody is following it that's doing the fulfillment work? Even like you guys, I imagine, benefit from having brand guidelines that you could follow, palettes, language to use.
Yeah, it helps a lot.
Most people don't have them.
Yeah, when we're designing something, it's like we kind of go through a similar process, but not quite as like, full fleshed out of like interviewing customers and things like that. But we'll ask the business owners, who your target market is, but then usually they do come back with that answer of what they think it is as opposed to what it really is. So then I'll talk to them and say like, can you tell me more about your past 10 customers that you had? And they're kind of doing the strategy work on their own, or the kind of, figuring out who that persona is themselves. And they're not doing obviously as good as a job as you guys would do, but it gives me and my team like a good idea to figure out, okay, when we're designing like the actual website itself to do for conversions, what, like, do they need to have a video at the top? Do they need to have a photo at the top? Do they need to have credibility near the top? Like there's different, like depending on the industry and like the niche that you're in, there's different kind of templates that you almost want to follow with like, more consumer stuff. They like to watch a lot of videos. They like to really just, consume a bunch of information. But if you're doing like the more B2B side, they want to get straight to like the results that you're going to provide as opposed to like consuming a bunch of content. So like when it comes to, doing conversions on like the website side, yeah, like you're right. There's a lot of stuff that I need when it comes to brand guidelines and the other to follow. So I have like a process.
Yeah, it's super important. And then I'd always say, I mean, you probably work with a lot of companies that are just so eager to start running campaigns so they could get sales. You probably have spent a lot of time just getting them to slow them down. You have to help them from their own selves, like to just rush into it. So we always tell people it's not first to market, it's best to market. As with all things, come prepared, sharpen, the blade enough times in advance so you could just chop the tree down and not spend the whole day chopping the tree down. So just it requires that level of trust where the customer says, okay, I trust these guys who are subject matter experts that are saying take our time, and that that you could also that they could trust you, and it's very mutual, right? Because that process is just so foreign. People just want to start running campaigns, but they don't even know how to assess how much money they're squandering and wasting with low conversion rates. Especially like for us, if we're spending $10 to $20 cost per click, the difference of a 4, 6, and 8% conversion rate could be thousands of dollars per month.
Exactly. And that's probably more, like when we're getting more in like the nitty gritty side, that's all the stuff that I look at where like, does the math add up to like profit? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people like, exactly what you're saying. It's like they want to run Facebook ads or Google ads or do SEO right away. But then if you're doing those things and you're sending traffic to a website that doesn't look good, doesn't have a good, feel to it, doesn't really explain credibility, doesn't have headlines that resonate with, your market, then it's just kind of a waste. And I've had this happen before where clients actually had a website that was built with, another agency, and that was fine. We weren't going to touch it. It looked okay from like how the actual design, like elements of it, like the colors and things like that looked good. But I kind of just had like in the business owner was kind of attached to the website, like they didn't want to quite do a new one yet. So I was like, okay, we'll do that. And we started sending Google traffic to it, and it just wasn't converting into anything. And I kind of saw that was happening. So we stopped about probably a month and a half in, just giving it some time to test. And we're like, hey, we're not getting many conversions when they actually get to the website. And I looked behind the scenes and I see the search terms that people are typing in are highly qualified. But then when they're actually getting to the website, they're not converting. So obviously, if you isolate the problem, it's the website and it's just not converting. So we redid the website, and then of course redid the campaign so it's a little bit more like on brand for like the messaging and stuff like that that they were looking for with like what people are typing in. They want to see in Google that the ad copy is exactly what they're looking for, because it was kind of the particular business owner I'm talking about, it's kind of like a niche market in a way, but like it can be misconstrued in a bunch of different ways. So we had to be like super on point with the copy of the Google ads itself to make sure they were looking for the right thing. Yeah, the meta title matches a keyword verbatim. And exactly. Then you include your quality score goes up, you pay less per click, and you convert higher. Yeah, it's just awesome, more relevant. And Google like rewards you for that with the quality score and everything. And then, we just saw that once we fixed the foundation of the site, then sending the traffic to it was actually worth it and profitable, because then they started getting phone calls, started getting contact form fills. And it was kind of a blind spot that the business owner had for a bit. And I just didn't want to push the thing because they were so attached to the website. But obviously since then I've learned, I'm like, we just kind of need to separate and remove stuff that isn't working, like no matter what it is, no matter how attached a business owner is. It's like, don't focus on what you want. It's kind of more like, what do you need, and like what's actually going to get the results. The wishful thinking is hard to get people to slow down to assess. A lot of people want something that is super affordable, but it's going to be God mode conversion, like you're saying. Yeah. And that's kind of hoping for like a unicorn. And it's a risky bet, right? It's like playing roulette and betting on a number instead of a color. And so we just try to ask people like, are you saying you're attached to the website because you feel like it really is your brand, or is it because you don't want to spend money on trying this again because you hired some rookie before to try to do it? And that's almost like, it's like some clients can kind of be damaged goods in a sense, and they're just like fresh off of an agency breakup. Usually if people just are talking mess on their agency, we don't even want to work with them. It's not a good sign. Yeah. But, you got to help them kind of heal from that and be like, this is why you can trust us, point to your process. Be like, so let's slow down and let's take this holistic approach, right? Or partner up with us and say, let's do branding and the website and watch it all come together. But it's interesting. So I was going to ask, when you were helping them improve conversions on the site, was it also not just optimizing landing pages, but creating better content offers? So middle of the funnel content, calculators, demos, whatever. Did you guys have to do a lot of that stuff too to help? That's also something that is extremely important for conversions. So just like I guess, explain it a little bit more with context, particularly we work with a lot of service businesses. So usually what that middle of the funnel, offer is like a call or some type of, consultation or something like that. So we kind of have to play up that consultation in a way that like the person's actually going to think it's worth it to fill out that contact form. Yeah. So they may resonate with the headlines and everything like that. But then when it comes to specifically, what am I going to get out of this phone call, even though it's free, it's the funniest thing, because even like you're not paying for it, but you still have to build up the value of it. And that's something we do as well. And that's a little bit more copy driven, but it still increases the conversions because, you know, if the person doesn't know exactly what results and outcomes they're going to get out of that like free consultation call or whatever it is, as opposed to like little features of, you know, on the call, we analyze your website. It's like, okay, well, what does that do, right? Like if you're talking about my specific website, it's like on our consultation, we go through custom marketing plan that is going to basically actually be profitable and like give you reasons to like do things. So like, you know, a lot of people, when they do, or a lot of agencies, when they try to do a marketing plan, they put a lot of filler services in there, like social media management and things like that, of just posting content for them. And it's like, well, you could get an automated software to do that. Like, so it's like
Hootsuite or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So like in our thing, we basically go through like, what do you need? What don't you need? And really only focus on like the essentials. And when someone sees that, they're like, you know, going on our website, they say, oh, the results I'm going to get out of this is an actual strategy that's going to help us. And they're also like, it kind of takes away fear because they're not going to try and sell us something we don't need. Yeah. So yeah, when it comes to building up the value of your offer, even if it's something for free, you still need to be like focused on conversions. Because just because you have a thing that says get a free call, well, what does that mean? Right. Yeah. So like, again, it's all about results and what the actual client is going to get. So any business owner that is looking at how to improve their conversions, you know, obviously needs to do kind of like a redesign and like, you know, change their messaging and things like that if things aren't working. But like almost where they should start as far as like the nitty gritty on the website, something to change right now is what is your offer and how can you manipulate it in a way that, you know, try different angles and see what resonates the most on that offer. Because it could be a free call that talks about, you know, like we're going to do an analysis of, you know, like if it's like a lawyer, we're going to do an analysis of your case and kind of figure out where to go from there. You could like reword that and say, we're going to do an assessment and give you 5, you know, ways that you can go about it. Instead of just giving, like being a little bit more specific of what they got out of it, we're going to give you exactly 5 strategies of how you can go about like handling this lawsuit. And then we also are going to help you with each of those 5 as opposed to just
people work
general.
Well with numbers. Yeah. Right. They get lost if you're not just laying it out with clear steps, right? And takeaways. It's just hard for them to wrap their heads around, especially if they're just not marketers and you're working with like a business owner that doesn't have a savvy CMO on staff. And I mean, right now as we're, you know, recording this, we're in the middle of like a global pandemic, right? COVID. Yeah. The economy is kind of turning over right now. It's at the end of its cycle. And I think that conversions and making sure people are, you know, maximizing them is more crucial than ever. Like there's not as many marketing dollars to waste. Every dollar is precious. There's going to be more people competing online. So conversion optimization is going to become such a big thing. I feel like moving forward, and a lot of companies have to contend with, you know, their finance department saying this is marketing essential. This is marketing spend is essential, because we've talked to a lot of companies that have just kind of cut off marketing budgets. And that's why I feel like everything's going to have ROI attached to it. So the more that they can improve conversion rate optimization in light of this economic downturn, the better. Less chances to like learn along the way. They've got to get it right on day one.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny that a lot of businesses are pulling back on their marketing, and I get it if they're super struggling and on the brink of bankruptcy or something like that. But at the same time, if they're doing okay, it's like, well, you have to realize the rest of your market is pulling back. So like when that happens, you're the only player on the field. You get to go in there and kind of dominate that market. And again, if the offer that you have on your website or your social media ads or whatever you're doing, if it resonates with the brand, if you're talking to them correctly, you're talking about the results and outcomes they're going to get, you've interviewed, you know, customers to figure out what they want during this time. That's also an important thing, is because of COVID, it's like you have to adjust your offers based on COVID. Because let's say someone is going, like, just again, I'm using a law firm example, like a bankruptcy. If they're going through a bankruptcy right now, like your messaging and all your your offer and everything like that could talk about how we help you with that. But then all you have to do to increase conversions just during the pandemic time, obviously you need to change it after this pandemic's over, but even during COVID, even during this, like, it's kind of like, if you just add on that little element of like, we can still help you during this time, all of a sudden the rest of your competitors are just saying the same thing over again. If you get your free call or whatever it is, but then if you say, hey, we have a specific strategy that can help you during COVID, then it's like, wow, like if you're talking about brand messaging or like resonating with someone, they're going to think that's a lot more relevant than just kind of a generalist like view on it of just talking about it as if the pandemic isn't even happening. Like you have to be relevant. Yeah. So I guess when it comes to that, it would be good to ask you about that, of when, like, if something like obviously the pandemic and everything like that is happening right now, if someone is going through, or if a business is going through a time when they do need to look at their brand guidelines and kind of redo their branding, they need to make it slightly specific, you know what I mean, or I guess resonate with people during COVID and like the pandemic and everything like that. So how do you think they could go about slightly changing their branding right now to make it resonate with people more during like a pandemic time when there's a lot of scarcity and fear and all that stuff?
That's a great question. I think it kind of goes back to the whole saying, you got to bait the hook to suit the fish, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it comes down to a point of empathy, showing empathy. So when we say that a brand is three things collectively, it's not a logo, right? It's not your colors. Mm-hmm. It's how you look, it's how you sound, and it's how you position. Look is aesthetic. Sound is kind of like, how do I communicate? Am I young? Am I playful? Am I serious? Right? Mm-hmm. Like the way that Norton Anti-Security, their tone, their voice tone, and then how they compare against like Nike, let's say, it's wildly different. Yeah. Right. So getting that tone on point, but the positioning in context to what you're asking is being empathetic, like not saying we're the hero of the story, making them the hero of the story, and then starting most of the branding around, you know, in light of the pandemic, your company's probably experiencing X, Y, and Z. We understand you're probably going to encounter X, Y, Z because you've studied your audience, you know how to position, and then you provide, you know, a remedy to that solution. So I think just letting them know that you're aware of how this pandemic is affecting their business, and that's why having a niche understanding and focusing, like we know that a lot of tech and software companies are actually going to do very well, and right, they want to invest more in branding because a lot of people can be afraid of it. And the whole world, I mean, just look how many people use Zoom now. These tech and software companies see the opportunity to really scale. And so we're creating messaging that resonates with them. So I would say just empathy, being extremely empathetic and not ignoring what's happening, what's at play, whether it's a pandemic or the economy, those two things, and starting from there.
You know what's funny about Zoom too is like kind of to almost use it as a case study. There was a whole widespread thing on the internet of like, why did Zoom dominate this market? And I think it has to do with kind of both of the things we're talking about, of like their branding and how they position themselves and their communication. And then also just things on their actual website that led to more sales and more people trusting them, as opposed to like Skype. So like Skype is their, you know, biggest competitor, and everybody's kind of wondering like, how did Zoom dominate it so well? But I think it comes down to Zoom was out there communicating that we're going to help you during pandemic, COVID, and we're going to be your one-stop, you know, solution that's also going to be secure, and here's how, and this and that. And then on their website, they redesigned their front page. Like it actually like talked about how during COVID, make sure that, you know, you're communicating with family. They kind of had multiple different landing pages depending on what, you know, was being used. But like on their, you know, more enterprise level page, they were talking about, well, you want security because everybody has to, you know, do remote work. You have to make sure all your video calls are super secure and someone can't just like come in randomly. And there was a bunch of news articles about that, but they fixed it. But then also people are using Zoom to like, literally I see people watch Netflix with their friends on Zoom. Like they all just log in and then they share the screen and do that. And it's like, how can Zoom also communicate to those people as well as the enterprise people? They have to niche down to those two particular things via their website and how their little funnel is optimized. And then also their you know, positioning and like branding stuff. So do you think that they did a good job?
Like, I think they did. And I mean, I sometimes wonder, you know, how you'd hear these stories of, oh, this guy forgot to shut down his meeting and he's still on camera, or someone just popped up in another video chat feed. I'm almost like, did they allow that to happen to create some controversy just to get buzz out there? Because that's how I heard about Zoom. I was like, have you heard about that platform that people are using where someone's just going to show up in your meeting randomly? I was like, that's either unintentional or like the most genius marketing, but they did attach their brand to things that continue to allow people to stay in contact. Yeah. Right. So whether it was like, you know, weddings, whether it was like happy hours, or just more kind of things that were happening virtually in light of the pandemic that they were trying to attach themselves to. And they did a really good job on social. Yeah. Right. So.
You know what's funny too is like even the process. I like using Zoom and Skype right now because it is relevant to what we're talking about, and it is very interesting how Skype really did fail on the branding side, but then also the on website conversion optimization, where Skype, it's not an easy process to really sign up. You have to have this Microsoft account, and if you don't have the Microsoft account, they won't let you sign up. And it's kind of they create a lot of friction on the actual tangible pages that you're clicking to sign up for a Skype account. Even to like join a meeting, you have to add them as a friend and do this, and that's not quite to do with conversion, rate optimization, but it's just like friction. And then also their branding and stuff like that messed up, as opposed to Zoom, where it's like you click one link and you join the meeting, as long as and then a secure meeting, you have to put in a password. But like the ease of use and the friction, there's almost none, and it makes it easy for people, and then it integrates well. But then also their positioning and all that type of stuff is on point. So it's kind of like just a great case study for like how conversion rate optimization can either like make or break your business.
Yeah. So assuming they did a great job with their branding, and now like after Wise Agency does their branding and we want to pass them over to you for conversion rate optimization, what is like the very first thing that you want to get started on them with, right? Like what's top priority? I
would say, again, the offer and making it relevant to their audience. So kind of taking what work that your agency would do and taking that into account of like, okay, so when we're building the actual landing page, like who are we talking to, using the right language and all that type of stuff. And like a lot of the work would kind of already be done at that point. And then it's just at that point, it comes to building and designing it in a way that like makes sense. And it's not like complicated. Right? Like I feel like a lot of websites have a lot of information on them. There's tons of stuff to click. It's kind of all over the place. And that used to be good, back in the day. But kind of how people are now is they're so ADD that they need kind of just one, like a lot of websites that are converting well are built like landing pages. Yeah. And then basically you just want to remove the most amount of stuff you can from your site. So it's a simple way that someone can go from the top of your funnel to the end of it.
I like that. Yeah. So, well, as always, if people want to take a look at where they're at with their brand, if it needs to be a complete redesign or refresh, they could always reach out to us at Wise Agency. And then for you guys, best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah. I mean, it can be on like a bunch of different things, like my website, ericrebelo.com. You can fill out a basically application. We look over kind of what your business is, get on a call with you, talk about if we're a good fit or not. Same thing, for you as well. It's just because, everyone's not the best fit, but or Instagram, DM, all the social media, however you want to reach out to me is fine. And then we can schedule a call to go ahead and see how to basically increase conversions, SEO, whatever else needs to be done on the website, and send some traffic and get some leads.
Sweet.